Hey guys, Dos here from Barbecue Mafia. Today I'm going to show you how to reverse sear a steak on my beautiful brand new burnt orange Weber kettle. Let's go. So first of all we want to get this chimney lit. So if you don't have a chimney, make sure you get one of these guys. You can do it in the baskets, you can light it in the baskets. But one of the first things that we find really hard when we were lighting charcoal is how to get it lit really hot. So chimney does that for you. It's got that little gap under the bottom, that little void, and that allows a heap of airflow and obviously the fire lighters to get in underneath and get that nice and hot, this whole basket. So let's get this lit. I'm only going to do half a chimney. We'll get it lit. So you just want to get 3 good sized fire lighters underneath, so get on this chimney so it gets it nice and hot. We use Jiffy fire lighters ourselves. Don't have that huge amount of that chemical smell that you smell with some fire lighters. The Jiffy ones we find burn really hot, so we use them to get our charcoal lit. As you can see, I've filled it to about halfway, and I'll show you why in a second. But let's light these up and get going. So yeah, straight away, get them lit. All right, so we're just going to leave that for 15 to 20 minutes. She's going to light up, and a really good indicator is that color of charcoal on top. You want to wait until it starts to go that sort of white, grayish, and the flames start to lick at the top of those briquettes on top there. But at the moment it's obviously smoking away, trying to light up. So we're just going to give that as much airflow as we can. All the vents are open on the kettle down the bottom. Even get a fan or a blower, guys, if you want to speed up this process a little bit, but that means you have to stand there doing it. I'm just going to go and do some more prep, and I'll be back in about 15 minutes and we should have some lit charcoal. So this is what I mean, just to create a little bit more airflow. I'm in a little bit of a corner of the backyard here, not much airflow, so I've just got my little portable fan pointed at the bottom of the kettle there. The ash, obviously the ash catches a little bit in the way, but it'll get enough of an airflow to really pump that chimney up. So that's just a little example. As I said, the blower works, or just put it in a little area in your house or your backyard where there's a bit more of a draft, and that'll help you get this chimney lit a bit quicker. All right, we've still got 10-15 minutes to go on this chimney, but I just wanted to show you, I use the heat beads briquettes. For me, they burn long, they burn hot. I find they're really good for a kettle cook. I use them to cook brisket on my kettle as well, so I get a real long cook out of them. It's just the ones you can get. They're abundant, you can get them anywhere. You can get them in Coles, Woolies, whatever, any barbecue store. But that's the briquettes I use. All right, so we're back. It's been about 18 minutes, and as you can see, there's flames licking up the top there, coming out the top of that charcoal. That charcoal's starting to turn that grayish white. All right, and that basket is lit. She is ready to go. All right, so you can see I've got one basket lit. The other basket's empty, obviously. With the reverse sear method, we want to start with a low heat first. We rest second, and then we sear off on a high heat at the end. All right, hence the reverse in the reverse sear. In a steak restaurant, they're going to sear that off first, chuck it in an oven to bring it up to the doneness that the customer wants, and then they're going to rest it. So it's flipped that technique on its head. We find this is the best way to cook a steak at home, and you will not try a steak at a restaurant after you master this method. All right, so one basket, we're going to go low and slow first, and I'm going to show you how I set up my kettle as a smoker. All right, so I've got the one basket of hot charcoal on this side, and obviously no charcoal in that basket. That's going to be our indirect side where I cook the steak. With the kettles, I run a 1 basket, 2 basket method in terms of heat. I don't really worry about the temperature gauge on the kettle. I mean, if it's brand new, it's going to work, but you know, after 10 times dropping the lid, like I've already damaged the lid on this side. Look at that, that absolutely killed me. But yeah, after dropping the lid, after a few cooks, that's going to just be inaccurate. So I work on the 1 basket, 2 basket method. 1 basket for low and slow smoking at a low temperature, and then 2 baskets to cook at high temperature. So if you're going to have a roast, you would put that in the middle. If you're going to cook on a rotisserie, you'd obviously fill those 2 baskets up with hot charcoal. and rotisserie through the middle. You can bring the baskets together and grill if you want to cook at a high heat, which I'll show you later, which is going to sear our steak on a high heat in this method. But yeah, 1 basket, 2 basket method. So feel free to ask me any questions about how I set my kettle up too. All right, so we're just going to chuck the grill on top. Make sure the trapdoors are over the basket so you can refill. You're not going to need to refill this guy too much because the cook's only going to be about 40-45 minutes. But yeah, just make sure you set it up so you can put a little bit of charcoal in there if that basket gets a bit low and the temperature drops. And then I'm just going to chuck a little bit of a piece of oak chunk over the firebox on the grill. I'm not going to chuck it directly in that firebox because that's going to just burn through too quickly. I want a long smoke, so this guy's just going to sit on top. He's going to get hot, he's going to start to smolder away and give me enough smoke in this chamber to get a bit of smoke on that piece of steak. So now that our barbecue's set up, as you can see there, we've got the heat on one side. I'm going to chuck the steak on this side over here. Our barbecue's ready to go, so I'm just going to chuck that lid on, get some heat in there, and we're going to start on this steak. All right, so I've just picked up a little bit of Porterhouse, cut 1.5 inches thick. The thicker the better with this method, with the reverse sear method. If it goes too thin, you're gonna cook it too quickly and you're gonna overcook it. So the thicker the better with reverse seared steak. And you can see it's nice and marbled. This is an Angus Porterhouse, but it's marbled as hell, as you can see. All right, so obviously we're gonna use our OG stakeout. So if you haven't got the OG stakeout, this is her here. Make sure you get on that. That's our steak rub. It's nice and fine. So you can dust it on like salt and pepper, and you don't need to actually cake it too much with the steak. Just need enough to press it in, give it a little bit of seasoning on the outside, so cover all surface area on the edges as well. And this guy just helps give you a little bit of that flavor and that crust on the outside when we caramelize it, when we sear it off. All right, you don't want to overpower your steak, and this guy is brilliant. You don't overpower your steak at all with the OG stakeout. All right, and as you can see, I've just dusted it on. It's not caked on like you would a brisket or a beef ribs or whatever. All right, we've got our steak ready, so I'm going to chuck it on the colder side, obviously the indirect side of my kettle. All right, you can see my setup there. That's how I'm going to cook indirectly and smoke that steak. All right, that bit of chunk probably nearly getting hot enough to start to smoke away. All right, but she's going to start the cooking process. So as soon as I close that lid, she'll start cooking. All right, so on average, we don't really work in time with steak, obviously, but on average, you're looking at 40 to 45 minutes to reverse sear a steak, depending how thick it is, depending how hot you want to run your barbecue. You know, if you've got a temp gauge that you trust, if you're pellet smoking, sit it on 110, 120 degrees Celsius, and that's a really, really good temp to slow cook that bit of steak and let it break down nice and evenly. Break down nice and slowly. All right, so there's the setup with the steak on the kettle. I'm going to chuck that lid on. All right, so I just wanted to show you another little trick with the kettles. So we talk about hotspots in barbecues and knowing your hotspots in our classes. Really, really important to know your barbecue. Easy one for a kettle. The hotspot is wherever that vent is, directly below that. And if you've got 3 vents on top, if you've got a bullet smoker, there are going to be 3 hotspots there below those vents. That's because that heat and smoke gets drawn to that vent, obviously with the airflow. All right, so I'm just going to chuck that vent directly over my bit of steak because I want to draw all that smoke from that oak piece and that heat from the charcoal over the top of that steak. So she cooks, so that vent goes directly over the top for me. All right, we've just pulled the lid off our steak cook and the porterhouses. You can see it changing color. Obviously that fat's starting to render. Starting to look good. I reckon that's going to be really, really close. So my target temperature is 55 degrees Celsius internal. So let's have a look. All right, so she's really, really close. She's sitting at 50 degrees in that fattest part of the porterhouse. All right, and that you can see that oak chunk just starting to smolder away, starting to change color and give us a little bit of smoke on our cook. All right, but this porterhouse is a couple of minutes away from being ready, and we're going to pull her off and rest her. All right, so we just opened the lid after about half an hour. Just going to check the temperature. So I love a medium rare steak. So yeah, she's sitting at... This is where my audio cut out because I'm a bit of a spud with the technical side of things. But yeah, she was sitting at 55 degrees Celsius internal, which is exactly where I wanted it. So I took her off and rested her on a little bit of foil for 15 minutes, just let her relax a little bit, ready to get my charcoal hot so I can sear it off. I'm just going to fill this basket with another little chimney that I did. All right, that's nice and hot. All right, so I'm just going to grill this steak. So while it's resting, I'm going to get this ready and grill this steak. So fill up your other, as I said before, if you want to grill, use 2 baskets. So fill up your other basket full of hot charcoal. All right, and I'm going to chuck a couple little coal bits on there. But this is where you fire up. So you can see I've got my fan hitting that bottom vent, getting a lot of airflow. I want to really get these baskets as hot as I can. All right, so we can get that nice sear, that nice Maillard effect on the outside of the steak, that caramelization. All right, so another red hot half chimney of charcoal. Chuck her in. All right, leave the lid open because the more airflow, as I said, the better. All right, we're just going to chuck the grill back on. So we chuck that grill on. All right, and that's just a little bit of fat that was probably in that chimney that's burning off there. But these are going to get nice and red hot. Those grills are going to get red hot as well. And you get those nice sear marks on the steak. So yeah, let's rest this steak. We'll come back and sear her off. All right, we've had 15 minutes. We've rested the steak. So I've just opened up that foil. But yeah, this is nice and hot now. That grill will be nice and hot to sear this steak off. So this is the last method. Obviously searing it off on a high heat, trying to get that caramelization, that Maillard effect on the steak. So let's chuck her on. And I hate using tongs, bloody hell. All right, there we go. All right, so nice and hot. You can hear that sear. So we're just going to sear that for, you know, a minute or 2 each side, depending on how caramelized you like it. This is a good way to control the temperature too. If like me, if you took it off a degree lower than what you should have, or a couple, just sear it for a little bit longer. All right, but a good way to control. As you can see, this guy's still nice and tender. We just want to get that crust on the outside. We're just going to flip her over. As you can see, she's nice and caramelized on that side now. Mixed in with the steak out. Those sugars, enzymes breaking down on the outside. Absolutely gorgeous. For my medium rare steak, obviously I took it off at 55 degrees Celsius to rest, and now I'm searing it to 58 degrees Celsius for that perfect medium rare pinkness. All right, so this is our Porterhouse, nice and caramelized. All right, I'm gonna slice her up. All right, see how we've gone for that medium rare. She's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Look at the moisture. This technique gives you all that moisture in that steak. All right, that's definitely not an overcooked steak. All right, shoot us a comment on how you like your steak cooked, and don't say this is raw. This is how we eat it in Australia, mate. Beautiful little bit of Porterhouse steak there, reverse seared. I'm just going to pour our capo chimney on top. There she is, guys, our reverse seared Porterhouse. Now, a few things to remember with the reverse sear is the thicker the cut, the better. All right, and our 3 temperatures. So our low temperature to start with. So we turned our little kettle into a smoker. All right, we went on a low temperature to our target resting temperature, which was 55 degrees for my medium rare steak. Rested it for 15 minutes, and then we seared it off on a really, really high heat. So 2 baskets in the kettle. We seared it off on a high heat and took that to 58 degrees internal. And that's your result there. I've put some of our capo chimney on top. Let me just taste a little bit for you guys, just to show you how good this is. There she is there. Oh my God. Get on the reverse sear, guys. Cheers.